let's look at the Canadian regional finalists. And so it's kind of similar to what they were doing in the US with the Hobbytown locations, except they worked with anime conventions. And so this one is first place from Animathon in Edmonton, Alberta. Orbital Domination by Jiyoung Builds. We can copy the link and we can paste it here if anyone is interested. And let's take a look. Once again, the photos aren't the best because I'm just going by what I could find. But this is really cool. Really dynamic pose. We've got some fluffy stuff to be the smoke and the fire coming out, and the key is to paint it too. I feel like if you're gonna use that kind of thing, like you can't just simply glue it onto your model and call it a day. Like you need to kind of paint it and sculpt it in some way. So that's what we're seeing here, and I think that looks really good. And it's just a very dynamic. Whoops, sorry. It's just a very dynamic pose. I'm not sure if I have any other pictures of it. I don't. But yeah, I really like this. Very well done. What else do we have? So this one is first place Otakuthon Montreal, Zaku Tank by Easy Does Painting. Yeah, so I got to see this in person, and I really, really loved this. I really thought it was great. There was another piece on display. As far as I could tell, there was maybe like 3 or 4 tops that were entering into the GBWC, which is actually something we should talk about. In the podcast that I was listening to, they were talking about how a lot of these locations, they didn't have too many people entering, whether that be late notice, timing, schedule, or maybe just people didn't feel like they wanted to compete. Maybe people felt like they weren't ready and they needed another year, or they were just scared off and thinking there was going to be so many amazing kits on display that they wouldn't stand a chance. But yes, it seemed to be a thing where maybe there was 8 to 10 entries on average for a lot of the stuff that was happening in the US. And again, I'm not sure how many took part in this competition, but I say all that to say that there was at the very least one other kit that had what I've been calling the presence, like just a really big, dynamic and striking kit that like kind of just, if you look at it, if you look at all the models that are on display, kind of like your eye would just gravitate to this other kit because it's just so large. And I really like this kit too, but I hadn't thought of it as something that could potentially win until I looked at it much more closely and looked at the photos. And the photos aren't doing it justice. My apologies. As I said, I've just been using what I could find. This is painted like to a much higher degree to the other one that I was talking about, which I might have some photos of. We can try and find it later. But yeah, the weathering, the chipping, the composition, the shading, all of this is just really, really well done. And just, in my opinion, leagues beyond the other one that I was talking about. So that was really the main thing that it had going for it, was the fact that that other one was so big. And I think that really goes to show, as far as the judging goes, that they were really on point and they were paying attention to those details and paying attention and not being swayed by something that was simply large, which I feel like potentially could happen at other competitions. You know, it's just, hey, someone made something really big, it's painted pretty good, and maybe something that ended up being smaller and maybe kind of low key, but the more you look at it, it's just so much more rewarding, so much more, it just had so much more going on, and that's exactly what was happening here. So shout out to Easy Does Painting, very, very good. So now we have 2, and this is from Anime North. This, I think Anime North was the first regional qualifier for Canada. And this one is from HBX Art. Once again, let me just copy the link and post it. The Presence. LeBron. So that's easy, and let's get this one here for HXB Art. The winner from Anime North. A Dom. Just really, really well done. Amazing details that just, you can see all the hard work that went into it to make it feel much more realistic, like it's a militaristic looking machine from World War II or something. Very, very well done. Okay, hold on. And there are some other pictures. We do have a document. I don't know if it was a booklet per se, but we do have a document kind of detailing the anatomy of Dom 2. And yeah, really nice kind of layout explaining the process, highlighting specific parts and the details that went into those parts. For example, marking out 2, and you see wire catcher, a sharp blade to cut cables and wires at head height found on IFVs. And so yeah, there's a lot of nice details there that if you're a judge, this just helps you appreciate it all that much more. I'm not sure if this was available, this document was available. I'll have to ask Bacon during Anime North. But nevertheless, very, very good information about the process. Some Zimmerit. Yeah, really cool. And I think this is the last one that I have. Again, so unfortunately, I've been seeing how it's been difficult finding out information about who won in the US and Canada. But it's that much more difficult for Canada because these competitions are happening at anime conventions, and I'm only hearing about it after the fact, if at all, right? It would have been much more useful to know about the entire schedule of the various regionals, such as it is. You could call it convention qualifiers. It'd be much more useful to know in advance all of the ones that are happening, and so for people that want to compete, they can kind of plan accordingly. Maybe they can't go to the one closest to them because of scheduling, but maybe if it's like a drive, you know, a day trip out to another location, they could do that. That information wasn't available anywhere on the GBWC site or anything like that. And it could have been useful for a lot of folks. But yes, and I'm not even sure about the timing of this. So this would have been a convention in Winnipeg. And I'm not sure if this happened sometime after Anime North, but before Otakuthon. I'd kind of have to look into that. And again, not many photos, not great photos, but this one, Winnipeg, and it's called Frenemies by Kelly. And it's kind of blurry, but there's one model here, and this looks like the Psycho Gundam ready to combat this. Is it a gym or something? I'm not really sure. Yeah, this is the convention itself, but I can't really read the logo. And this one, first place. You can see that the base, it seems to me like the base is made from several action bases, or they have the kind of hex-like pattern, and then they've kind of stuck them all together. We've got this base, which is, or rather the bridge, which is made up of multiple sets. You get like maybe 1 or 2 segments of this bridge, and then a bit of a building, and you can buy multiple of them to make a much longer bridge and a much taller building. So that's what we're seeing here. I'll try and find some better photos of this, because I think we're not doing it justice. We're not getting the full picture. But this thing is like suspended in the air. We can see that there's maybe it's a brass rod going from the base all the way up to the model to suspend it in the air. And then there's the Psycho Gundam. And we have what appears to be some shading, some pre-shading, which is all really good. So again, this is not complete as far as I can tell. And if I get more information, we can talk about it then. But as a thought experiment, let's think about what could potentially be the top 3 and what could potentially win Canada and represent Canada in Japan. So we're kind of thinking with the mindset, how is this going to ultimately stack up with all the builds at the world final stage, right? So this is top 3 to me. It's going to say top 10. There isn't even 10 models, but this is top 3 to me. I think that I just really like how dynamic it is. The missile is kind of suspended in the air. And I feel like the blast and the smoke, all of that is painted. It's not an LED emanating light. It's painted. And I'll say this is my own personal opinion, but I feel like if you're going to simulate light through painting, that displays a tier of skill that's higher than putting LEDs. Personal opinion. I like LEDs, look really great, look good, but again, that's just my personal opinion. You're kind of showing off a lot more painting ability, and the judges can award you a lot more if you are simulating light. You're doing object source lighting. But beyond that, I really like the composition of this, with the rocks and the pose, and it feels sculptural. I think that's something that some folks have talked about in the past, and it's something that I think about too. Is it's not enough to put your models, put them on a base, even if it's a display base, even if it's a diorama, even if you thought about posing it and making it look cool. I think that's good, but ultimately you're looking to make something that is not just a bunch of disparate pieces clumped together and making a scene, making a narrative. You're looking to make something that feels cohesive as a whole, as something dynamic and something kind of sculptural. If you think about, if you go to a museum and you look at actual sculptures, how does that feel as a cohesive image? If you look at paintings, how does the composition of a painting come together to look cohesive? And this actually is approaching that. And you'll probably see as you go through and look at other examples where there are just very separate and disparate pieces just arranged because it's cool, and that's fine. But I think that this person is really thinking about that. So that is a top 3. This also is top 3 in my opinion. HXB art, and it's just really well done. We were just talking about like having a very dynamic pose, having a very dynamic composition. This is actually the opposite. Paint the whole picture, not just the parts. This is a very stoic, very straight pose that is just like boom, it's there. But I feel like that kind of works in its favor, because that feels like the model, that feels like the attitude that this model would have. And so to have it just displayed very straight, we have it just boom, look at it. I feel like that kind of works for it, and it just has that really, it has a really nice first impression, and it has that presence, but it also has, as we've been talking about, all those amazing details that you can kind of go into and appreciate all the hard work that has gone into taking this to the next level. So definitely top 3. This one, I really wish I had better pictures. It's just kind of really hard to just go by a single picture with with the one model out of focus, you know, like it's very hard. I think it's good, but I don't know if I could put it top 3. And then we have this, which is easy. Easy does painting, the Zaku tank. And remember, I was saying how this has just really, really top-notch painting, and it's kind of a model that I feel like is going to go under the radar, go underappreciated in light of so many other models that just have that are just that much more bigger. They've got the presence. But I really do like it, and I'll probably slot this in at 3rd. So I think this is gonna be. It's really tough between these two. HXB art and the Dom and orbital domination. As far as the models that we have presently, and like I said, there could be more. It's between these two for 1 and 2. You know what? So I'm someone that really likes dioramas, right? And it's something that I feel like a lot of people are starting to think about now, more about now, because it just feels like it can elevate your build and elevate the presence of your models. And it's true. And it can help you sell a story more. But at the end of the day, when a model just knocks it out of the park, when a model just checks all the boxes, and it just speaks for itself. You don't need the diorama. You don't need all of that stuff, because you can feel it. You can feel that narrative. You can feel the story in every single scratch, in every single piece of weathering, the bolts, all of that stuff. It's all there on the model itself, and you don't need a diorama. So I'm putting this number 1, as far as I can tell, from what we've seen, HXB art from Anime North. This to me is going. I'm going to put this as number 1 from what we can see, and is going to represent Canada, I think. And then 2, and then 3. But that's just me, and like I said, anything can happen. And the way the judges kind of break things down and interpret the rules, not the rules, interpret the rubric, and how a judge feels on any given day, whether they be in person or online, for ultimately when these get decided, it'll be a different set of judges than the ones from the convention. At least that's my understanding. I think this is going to be number 1. Yeah, so that's what I have. That's what I've broken down, and I have some other categories that I've started but haven't filled out, like the regional finalists and qualifiers from other regions other than US and Canada. You know, so for example, as we get more information from what's happening in Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, so on and so forth, we can fill that out. It's empty right now. Noteworthy entries, other models that placed anywhere but from 2 second place and anywhere else. We'll fill that out, because that'll be an interesting conversation too, is seeing what didn't make the cut to top 3, what didn't make the cut as far as first place. That'll be interesting to see. And yeah, that is all the information I have. Again, I felt like it would be good to have a singular place where we could look at all these things and kind of and have a place where we can look at all the models from all the different regions, US, Canada, so on and so forth. There isn't one like that. And it's interesting, to me at least. I don't know. Could be silly, could be boring, but it was a nice little thing to distract myself at least. A little side project. And yeah, once we get more information, we'll update that. So stay tuned.